And our kids, because the most important component of this conversation is our kids and how they're feeling about this. So hopefully we can start setting the right kind of example as parents, because that's how this equation works. We're going to be focusing right now on two stories that kind of put this into perspective, and they certainly put school bullying in sharp focus this week. You can call it initiation, you can call it what you want. We saw the videos. In Johannesburg, a mother pulled her grade 1 daughter out of St. Stedians. That was after an alleged bullying incident that left the child with ear injuries, raising some urgent questions about school response and safety in a particular ecosystem as well that you would think would be primed to respond. Then down in Cape Town, a video of vicious assault at Milton High School went very viral. 8 pupils have been suspended and the country demanded answers, and now people are acting out. These cases have parents asking, what are schools required to do? What can we do as families right now to protect our kids? And we are joined by the incredible criminal law expert and SGB chair, Fallon Taft. She's right in the mix. And then Kay Shatenov, creator of the awesome High Five primary school program to tackle both accountability and practical tools. Whew. I'm like thinking about my whole life right now, because I have been a victim of initiation. I've perpetrated initiation during my time at school, and I will say that with a certain amount of shame, but also a certain amount of, that's the way we did it. That's no longer good enough. Fallon, maybe I can start with you. When these stories first started surfacing, because this is not new to you.
No.
What was your initial reaction?
It's just gobsmacked at how quickly things have escalated from what was once downplayed as, you know, normal school terrain.
Banter.
Yes. And all of a sudden we are here where things are being videographed and it's being circulated on social media. But not only that, the extent. I just said to you earlier, it was once just a pulling of hair.
Yeah.
And little girl running out and screaming about the boy in the class that pulled her hair. And that was it. A little shoving around on the playground. But we've gone way beyond that at this stage. And I think it's the extent to which it's escalated that has become alarming. Not only to me as an attorney, but obviously as a mom first.
And I think this is maybe where the nerve has been struck, is that every parent out there just wants to do something to protect their child, maybe retrospectively, when it's a little bit too late. And when you hear stories about a grade 1 learner being unsafe in one of the safest, you would imagine, have to be one of the safest environments in South Africa. That's kind of belies why you do what you do. Why do we have to protect children from that age?
That age. The thing is, if they see what's happening on the TV and they see what's happening in the rest of the school, these kids learn from that. You know, it's almost expected that that is how you behave. And honestly, as a parent, I'm going to say it's going to start at home.
So I'm not a violent person, okay, and I'm sitting at home and my child is doing these things that seem so out of character. Where is it actually coming from when it starts at home? Is it my lack of involvement, my ignorance? Is it the snide comments? How does something like this manifest? And maybe I'll throw that to you, focusing on the younger kids, the more impressionable children especially.
I think as parents, and I can only speak for myself here, when I had my son, I was a young parent and I was vigilant. I watched everything that he watched. I made sure that he only watched a certain amount of TV a day. I made sure that every game that he played was rated. By the time I got to my daughter, I was like, you know,
second child syndrome.
I have a 7-year difference, so he wants to watch this, and every time that she's in the room, must I now take her away, or must we only watch cartoons until he's 14 years old? So
you end up watching a lot of Bluey.
You know, and so we lack that involvement, I think, as a parent. That's what happened to us. And
then it becomes an easy out.
And then it's an easy out.
Where does this begin then? What was your first thought for culpability in this space? As someone who had to address this practically, where would you start? Do you go straight to the school?
Yeah, you go straight to the school. But I mean, taking the lawyer perception out of this is to make your kid sit down, if your kid is obviously the alleged perpetrator, as to ask the why. Why did this happen? Where did it start? What caused you to act in this manner? And then, obviously, when it comes to the reporting stage, if you're on the end of the victim, it's to first of all create a safe environment for your child specifically. To make them know it's not their fault. To make them know they're not to blame for what has happened to them. And then to take the steps in reporting it to the school, telling them exactly what happened, when it happened, who was involved, detailing it, and the school needs to take it further.
And then things escalate terrifyingly.
Yes.
For the child, for the parent, maybe therein lies one of the reasons why we're not taking that step. I addressed a bullying issue yesterday with my son, trying to figure out what was actually going on. Water was a little bit murky in that space, but he didn't want to talk about things because he was worried about the reaction that was going to happen. How do we address that critical space of just kids being comfortable and safe enough when they're going to go back to school and they're going to have to face that social dynamic once they become the pariah?
It's so difficult to address that. What we do in the show is to teach them the basics. And I think that is where we've gone astray. Parents don't teach the basics anymore. What is it to be kind to others? What does it really mean? Can you walk in that other child's shoes and make sure that they understand
empathy?
It is so important. We need to teach them that they are safe and that they can make themselves feel safe in any environment. It's so easy to get into a situation where the kids just don't have the safety that they need to run to. So that is where we touch. We speak to them about resilience. That yes, when our hair was pulled or we were tripped up the stairs, that was a part of bullying. But we were like,
It was an opportunity to get back up again.
Back up again, and I'm stronger than that. And so these are the things that we touch on in High Five Show, and we do it from grade 1 up to make sure that they understand the basics. The
fundamental building blocks. You talk about home, you talk about schools. Fundamentally, these should be the safest places that our children have. I'm understanding there's an action vacuum that needs to be filled here, and blame is the easy way to kind of absolve ourselves, and I think all of us have had a massive role to play here. So I'm going to ask you to hold the mirror up for the next 5 minutes while we take a moment. When we return, we're going to look at those practical measures we can do as schools, as parents, and yes, as students, to shift the culture in our spaces. We'll see you now. It's my feel-good breakfast show. Welcome back. I am smiling, believe it or not, as we delve back into a very tough conversation. Maybe I am trying to take the edge off here. We're going to delve right back into bullying at the moment, the culture that exists within our schools as it plays out through some major stories that are rocking South Africa at the moment. So if a school it does encounter this, what do we do? We're going to start with Fallon, with the legal route here, because I have a feeling once we start chewing on the legal gristle here properly, it's going to look slightly different. I.e., we haven't seen all the video footage. We don't know what informed to get to this awful moment of violence, but there were violent moments to get to that point. So how do you see this one actually playing out now that, thankfully, it is in a court of law? And I say that because parents aren't, I think, taking that on board. There is legal process happening now, right?
There is legal process.
And I'm talking
ongoing.
About the Milnerton incident specifically here.
Obviously, the Milnerton issue specifically at this stage. Look, at this stage, we've got two groups of students in the Milnerton matter. Those who've attained the age of majority, who's 18, and those who just go slightly beyond the age and are still regarded as minors. So as it's legally going to play out, believe it or not, it's going to have two different sorts of repercussions, because your 18-year-old is actually treated in our criminal justice system as an adult. Our 18 or the 17 plus 365 days year olds.
And 7 hours, yeah.
Yeah, those ones are treated in our criminal child justice system. So the repercussions are differently. I think the first question one needs to ask is the differentiation between bullying and the fine line that it threads on to become a crime. not every single little fight on a school field is regarded as bullying. An isolated incident of negative behavior isn't bullying. Conflict amongst peers isn't bullying. But when your situation of bullying mimics and it carries elements of a crime, it indeed becomes a crime. So you have your safe threshold of your 12 years under, who has no criminal capacity, and who can actually escape criminal prosecution in terms of our law. You've got the 12 to 14-year-olds who are presumed to lack criminal capacity. And then you've got your 14 to 18-year-olds who are deemed to have criminal capacity. So it's all about the intention when the bullying was inflicted. It's all about the awareness. Did they know what they were doing? Did they reconcile themselves with the wrongfulness of their actions? And then there goes the legal path. And currently, specifically with the Milnerton issue, they are facing assault GBH, assault with the intention to do grievous bodily harm. But believe it or not, that can actually escalate into an attempted murder charge as well.
And lives are ruined
Lives
on
are ruined.
layers here. And obviously, it'd been very publicized about certain kids who play for sports teams and things like that. Again, this seems to lean very heavily into the culture around these kids. I want to hear from you guys right now, and we did put it to you on our social streets. Thank you so much for jumping on board, Vershus. He says from grade 1, there needs to be social awareness classes to teach them about how to treat each other, respecting each other, and not violating another person just because they are different. We get this, we understand it, but we kind of, maybe I say this needs to be a school culture thing, but it has to be a parent thing. It has to be a parent-school thing, parent-school-child thing. How are you addressing this? You've opened that door now in a very proactive way through your organization and how you are dealing with this. Can we fix this retrospectively, or are we going to draw a new line in the sand and say, let's move forward collectively together? How are you feeling about the broader picture in light of what we have seen in the news lately?
Well, maybe I should start by why I created the show, and that was because my daughter was bullied.
What was the context?
She was different, you know, and I saw this play out in front of us, and it broke our family. It was a horrible time to go through. And once she then healed from that, and we had to move her to a different school, and we went through the whole process of reporting it to the school, nothing was done.
You just don't feel heard, yeah.
And we were not heard, and I decided I need to do something as a mom to make sure that other littlies out there has the resilience to stand back up, to know that they are special because they are different.
Yeah. Because they stood back up, yeah.
Because they stood back up. So high five it's very simple, you know, and I've already touched on some of it, but the most important one is I am me, where we tell them to take their little thumb and say, I am me, and you are you. And that, just in explaining that to them, that you do not have to be the person next to you. You will never be the person next to you, but you must understand that they are special too. And it's beautiful in a way that we teach them this little song that they take home, and we hope that they teach it to mom and dad.
Mantra, yeah. You know, the parents as well. Maybe this broadcast needs to be hitting the parents as firmly as, because I'm starting to feel all kinds of guilt and compliance and ignorance, and I've lived through the system. So how do we then approach this from a school's perspective?
Every school should have a code of conduct, for starters. And that's the document that every parent should be asking the school to have insight into. Because embedded in that code of conduct should be an anti-bullying policy.
And that must be a lived policy. It's not something that's talked about for 4 hours at the beginning of the year, yeah?
Technically, what should be transpiring is that that policy must be circulated amongst the parents annually, that they should know what stands in the document, that they create awareness, what's the repercussions of should bullying transpire to my child, those kind of things. And it's a working document, because what was bullying yesterday is not necessarily going to be the
online is a whole different question as well, yeah.
It's not going to be bullying and what constitutes bullying tomorrow. So it's a working document. It needs to be updated and amended frequently. So from a school's perspective, those are the first things the parents should ask.
Have your legals set.
Yes. And then obviously the reporting requirements is that Once it's reported, it does not necessarily have to be reported by the learner itself. It can be a friend, a fellow learner, a teacher whom the child has confided in.
And friends, remember that. If your buddy is facing that on the daily, you have that space to go
and the safe space.
A responsibility.
Yes, to go, because your friend might not actually have enough guts and braveness inside of them to go and speak out, but you can speak out on their behalf. And then obviously the school needs to follow their protocols in terms of the code of conduct, what to do, whether it is to escalate this to the disciplinary inquiry, the school SMT, which is your school management team, your SBST, which is your school-based support team, and from there, what are the actions that the school is going to take? But there's one crucial part that a lot of parents miss, and that is that the school actually has an obligation to investigate. The school needs to investigate.
Hold them to that, yeah.
Yes, we need to go and find out what transpired, who saw what happened, where's the evidence. And people think it's just, it's a report, we need to act. But it's not that. There needs to be some sort of investigation that gives them a basis and a foundation to know, right, we've got the right measures, we know what happened, now we can act.
It's called fact, and when playing in legal spaces, factual basis is absolutely vital. Just feeding on what you've said this morning, and thank you so much for being brave enough to step up for your daughter, or all daughters and sons in that space, because I absolutely love it. I think a big shift we've seen in the southern suburb schools here with the boys, make the dad coaches. Make them legally sign up to adhere to this and change that culture. Watching the change in all of us when we have to take that on board. So I would say from a parent's advice, first of all, thank you so much for the work you do every day. Just don't look to blame someone else. Yes. Maybe if you can just start with that, just what you can do to shore up your child, change the culture, maybe talk to other parents about it, get their advice, start the critical thinking, don't just react. Clearly, there's enough reacting going on all around us. Most importantly, keep our children safe and teach them to keep each other safe. Yes. We love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure.